It's difficult to see them walk freely. By them, I mean the men and the women that hurt others and get little to no penalty. If anything, it's sickening. As children, we're impressionable, and we almost always lack the skill of articulating ourselves. We feel what's going on inside of us. We know that something's wrong deep down. We just can't explain it. Not because we don't want to, but because we don't know how. We don't know if it's safe or not to talk about it. When we get to our teen years, it gets even harder. When we're teens, we often see the victims portrayed as liars and reputation destroyers, rather than being seen as the scarred and the helpless. I know. I've been through it. The first time I was 4 years old, it was at my own birthday party, and no one knew. I didn't even know what was happening. One minute, I opened the bathroom door to return to the party that was to celebrate me. The next, the lights were turned off and I was shoved back into the bathroom. That was the first time I tasted fear. My heart beat violently raced and my mind was in shambles. I couldn't process what was happening. Then it began to happen. Foreign hands began to roam my body in places I didn't even know existed. I couldn't scream or cry or anything because I felt that I was paralyzed. I felt an immense amount of guilt fill me up. The words, "just relax," rang in my ear loudly and continuously, even though it was only said once. After the fact, the stranger left me in the bathroom alone. I couldn't see him. I couldn't look at him. It took me a few minutes to get out, and once I did, I was blank for a minute. Then, being the child I was, I forgot about what just happened and went on to enjoy my day, but the shameful and disgusting feeling that resided in me, I could not comprehend it. I'd forgotten about it till the situation occurred again, and I was now in the 3rd grade, and what had happened was buried deep into my brain. But the shameful and disgusting feeling that resided in me, I could not comprehend it. I'd forgotten about it till the situation occurred again, and I was now in the 3rd grade, and what had happened was buried deep into my brain. I couldn't remember it. The feeling of shame and guilt and worry and fear had went away. I was only 9 now, and at this time, I was more aware of the dangers in the world, except the sexual dangers. At first, it started off with me getting in trouble over the small little things. If I left a book out on my desk, I couldn't go to recess. If I forgot to put markers away in the correct space, I'd lose lunch. Slowly but surely, my substitute teacher began to isolate me from the other kids, and I was frustrated because I didn't know why. Then it happened. I remember being held in during recess and sometimes during lunch, and before the actions would happen, my teacher would tell me that it was all my fault. I remember to this day how he would say, "I never had someone like you, so submissive." I was the reason why I needed a sexual punishment, and that only good girls would live their lives punishment-free. For the longest time, I never understood what I did wrong, and I always blamed myself for everything. Do you know what kind of effect that has on a kid? Do you know how lucky you are to live every day and not think and remember every single moment of that abuse when you close your eyes? I still see his face sometimes. At a certain point, I used to deface and desecrate my dolls because that's how I felt and that's how I viewed myself. I felt ugly, worthless. When my parents found my dolls and asked why, I took advantage of their confusion and I told them that was me doing their makeup. I didn't know how to take advantage of their concern because I was never taught how to. I guess it just never hit me. I went on in my life ignoring what had happened to me and ignored and refused to acknowledge that painful and sad emotion that existed, and I forced myself to forget how dirty and disgusting I thought I looked and felt. That feeling of disgust planted a home inside of me and stayed with me all throughout middle school and part of high school. The pain would come and go. Some days the triggers would hit harder than others. Now I've come to better terms with it. It is still painful to think about, and the flashbacks are absolutely horrid, but I learned something. I learned that it was in the past. While the past does not exclude what I went through, I remind myself that it's over now. Sexual assault of any kind should never be taken lightly. For those that always attempt to retaliate and turn it around on the victim are just as sick as the predators. A victim is a person that's harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or another event or action. Nobody asks to be a victim. No woman, no man, no child. Nobody asks for trauma. and to be forced to deal with this type of pain for the rest of their lives. I share my story because I do want other victims to see that they're not alone. No matter how big the void of loneliness you may feel, you are never alone when it comes to this. Your trauma is not less than or greater than someone else's. Sexual assault is not a competition. As a victim myself, I am here to tell you that you can and will get through it. Remind yourself that there is not a time limit on when you have to heal. There is no instruction manual on how to heal. Seeking out help is always the best, and it always helps. My name is Ash, and this is my story.